Welcome to Historic Chicagoland Golf Highlights. My name is Barbara Barrett, and I'm a history edutainment speaker. That is, I love sharing history in an entertaining way. I'm also a member of the LPGA Amateur Golf Association, the Chicago Metro chapter. You know, Chicagoland has a very rich history when it comes to the game of golf. Many firsts in the game of golf occurred right in Chicagoland, beginning with the first 18-hole golf course in the United States. The first great female golfer came from Chicagoland. The first public golf course was built in Chicago. The first golf tournament offering a prize of $25,000 was played here in Chicagoland. And the first nationally televised golf tournament, yes, you're right, from Chicagoland, and the first winner of the Masters came from Chicago. Well, who built the first 18-hole golf course in America? Well, the same gentleman who brought golf to Chicago to begin with, and that was Charles Blair Macdonald. He was born in Canada in 1855. His parents sent him to St. Andrews University in Scotland for his college education. That's when he fell in love with golf. He returned to the States in 1874. He settled in Chicago, and he and his father set up a very successful brokerage firm. But he didn't return to golf again until 1891. Well, as this plaque from Downers Grove, Illinois exhibits, let's look at paragraph 2. Early in 1892, MacDonald persuaded 30 members from the Chicago Club. Now, that was a private social club where people who were the movers and shakers of Chicago were members, people in retail, in banking, etc. And of course, Charles Blair Macdonald was a member. He convinced 30 of his fellow club members to contribute $10 each to design and construct a 9-hole course. Well, where did they select their course to be built? Well, in what is now Downers Grove, Illinois, but at that time it was Belmont, Illinois. They purchased a 60-acre stock farm owned by Mr. Haydow Smith. The golf course was completed and ready for play in 1892. Thus, America's first golf course west of the Allegheny Mountain Range had been established. After its inaugural season the following year, 1893, an additional 9 holes were added, which became the first 18-hole golf course in the United States. And this is the clubhouse. Well, by 1895, just a few years after its premiere, the Chicago Golf Club decided to build a course that was very much like St. Andrews in Scotland. So they moved to Wheaton, Illinois, and that is where Chicago Golf Club resides today. Still a beautiful private club. But whatever happened to that original 18-hole course? Well, in 1899, Herbert J. Tweedy and several of his colleagues formed the Belmont Golf Club on that site. And here on the right is actually the first 9 holes. Well, Mr. Tweedy had many firsts in golf himself. He started the very first golf equipment store at 10 Jackson Boulevard in Chicago, and he was editor of the Western Golf, the first journal of the game of in the West for golf. Now, since 1899 to 1968, that particular club changed hands, that course changed hands several times and had different names. It was even the Illinois Golf Club at one time. But in 1968, the Belmont Club was purchased by the Downers Grove Park District, and it was renamed the Downers Grove Golf Club. Only 9 holes. I've played on that course. It's beautiful, and I always wondered why it did not bring attention to its historic roots. Well, I'm happy to see in 2023, the Downers Grove Golf Club, still under the direction of the Downers Grove Park District, has been renamed the Belmont Club. It's been rebranded to honor the history of the legendary course. And 6 of the original holes from the original course still exist today, and you can play them. Now, what about the Chicago Golf Club that moved to Wheaton, Illinois? Well, here is their clubhouse as it exists today, and many firsts came from Chicago golf, including a very particular golfer, Margaret Ives Abbott. She was the first American woman to win an Olympic event in golf. In 1878, she was born into a wealthy American family that was living in Calcutta, India. Her father was in imports and exports. The family moved back in 1884 to Chicago. Well, Margaret and her mother became members of the Chicago Golf Club, and she was coached, particularly by James Charles Blair McDonald. Well, once Margaret became college age, she and her mother traveled to Paris. Her mother felt she should study art with Auguste Rodin and Edgar Degas. And in 1900, Margaret and her mother actually responded to an ad in the newspaper for a women's golf tournament. They immediately sent in their registrations. They didn't even realize it was a competition for the 1900 Olympics. It was the second games of the modern era played in Paris, France. Well, on October 4th, 1900, Margaret and her mother participated in the golf event on a course 50 miles north of Paris. Margaret was declared the winner after one round of just 9 holes. She shot a 47, and her mother finished tied for 7th. To this date, it's the only mother-daughter duo to compete in the same event in the Olympics. And where did she learn the game of golf? At the Chicago Golf Club in Chicagoland. But what of Margaret? Why don't we know about her? Well, she was awarded a porcelain bowl embellished with gold for her winning the Olympics in golf. She did not win a medal because that tradition did not start until 1904. She returned to the United States, married Finley Peter Dunn, settled in New York, and had a family with 4 children. Now, her actual children didn't even know about their mother's achievement until in 1980, Professor Paula D. Welch contacted them after researching female Olympic athletes, a project she was preparing in advance of the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. And in 2018, Margaret's belated obituary was published in the New York Times. It included her Olympic win. Well, that was going on southwest in Chicagoland at the time, but what was going on northwest? Well, in 1897, the Glenview Golf and Polo Club was established. Not the Glenview Club. This club was established in the village of Gulf, Illinois. A group of Evanston businessmen in 1897 founded the club by purchasing the Dews family 200-acre farm, 15 miles northwest of downtown Chicago in the village of Gulf. Actually, on the farm was the Dews family homestead cabin, and it still exists on the course today along the 17th hole. But the Glenview Golf and Polo Club was really home to 2 legendary golfers, Chick Evans here on the left, and Bessie Anthony, who became the first great female golfer. She won 14 tournaments between 1901 and 1903 and 3 women's Western Amateur Championships. But many of us have never heard of her. So let's hear from her great-great-granddaughter, Cornelia Powers.
If anyone had said that a sweet, shy, modest little girl could merely by her sportsmanship, her splendid skill, and her pluck arouse such a feeling of admiration and respect in the minds of the prosaic and business-like gentlemen who control the destinies of the United States Golf Association, he or she would be called insane. Nevertheless, this is what Miss Bessie Anthony has done.
Imagine playing golf in a high-collared shirt, a corset, and a long wool skirt. Imagine even swinging properly and hitting the ball thus encumbered. Bessie Anthony did, and did so well, she became the first great female player in Illinois.
So Bessie picks up her first golf club in the spring of 1899, right after her 19th birthday, and emerges as this incredible golfing prodigy. She goes on to annex 16 open victories and nearly 50 medals, ribbons, and trophies in the span of just 4 years, culminating with her victory at the 1903 U.S. Women's Amateur, played at Chicago Golf. She won by an incredible, almost unheard margin of 7-up and 6 to play.
Only fellow pioneers Charles Blair Macdonald and H.J. Wiggum equal her laurels from the first decade of the game. But like fellow amateurs Virginia Van Wee and Bobby Jones, her star streaked across the sky briskly, and the glow lasted only briefly because of her death at the tender age of 32. While Mary Elizabeth Anthony was among us, while she was playing, she was nearly unbeatable. She was at Evanston High in 1899 when the family doctor suggested she get outdoors more. Golf would be the game for her, first at Evanston Golf Club, then at Glenview Club, and it was there she became a standout player. She was still registering from Evanston when she entered and won the 1900 Governor's Cup at Onwensia, 13 months after first gripping a club. Taught by Evanston professional Chester Horton, who caddied for her, 20-year-old Anthony scored a 5-4 victory in the championship match. The success continued in 1901, with victories at Skokie, Exmoor, and another Governor's Cup at Onwensia. This one co-labeled the Western Women's Amateur, the WGA inaugurating its Women's Championship. Anthony set the women's course record, 91, in the semifinals, and beat Rose Chatfield Taylor, one of the first ladies to play golf in America, on her home course for the championship. By now, Bessie played at Glenview. Young Chick Evans was often her caddy. 1902 was another big trip through the calendar. She won the Wheaton Cup, a handicap tournament, at Chicago Golf Club in May, for which club president Robert Todd Lincoln awarded her this jewelry box as a prize. Playing from just in front of the men's tees at Midlothian, she captured their tournament, then ran away from the field at Edgewater in July, broke the course record in the Exmoor tournament later in the month, and lowered her Onwensia record to 89 in qualifying for the Western Women's Amateur and Governor's Cup in August. Her foe in the final, whom she defeated 1-up, was Maud Alexander, whose husband donated the championship trophy, still eagerly sought by players in the Women's Western Amateur, for which, incidentally, Bessie Anthony was a member of the first board.
The Illinois Golf Hall of Fame serves as a repository for golf greatness in this state. And when I realized that Bessie's story was really significant and needed to be told and needed to be understood, I wanted recognition given to Bessie that only the Illinois Golf Hall of Fame could bring. And it's really as simple as that. It was the proper forum for her story to be told because it has the scale that is commensurate with her level of accomplishment.
To this day, there is such a frustrating and regrettable paucity of recognition and awareness of early women golfers. When you ask someone, hey, can you name an early female golfer, most people come up empty, barring an occasional reference to maybe Babe Didrikson-Zacharias, who was born the year after Bessie died and won her first Open in 1948. The women of Bessie's generation, their stories have for so long remained really woefully unrecorded and unknown and unappreciated. So this recognition, I think, is a beautiful step in helping to correct that and shed light on someone who deserves to be celebrated.
What a beautiful tribute. What other firsts came in Chicagoland? Well, the very first public golf course in America was built right in Chicago proper. Can you guess which one it was? If you guessed the Jackson Park Golf Course, you would be correct. It was the first public golf facility west of the Allegheny Mountains. And it was built in 1899 on land that previously was occupied by the 1893 World's Columbia Exposition. And here in 1899, they built only 9 holes. Here's the first 9 holes. Following year, they added 9 more holes to make it an 18-hole course, and then added on an additional 9 to make it 27 holes of golf. Well, best part about it, not only was it open to the public, everyone could go off there, but it was free until 1907. And by 1925, 260,000 rounds were played on that 27-hole Jackson Park golf course, making it the busiest golf course in the world. What other firsts occurred in Chicagoland golf? The modern golf tournament was born here. Where? At the Tam O'Shanter Country Club in Niles, Illinois. This was a beautiful 18-hole course built in 1925. It was built by architect Charles Dudley Wagstaff. It consisted, as I said, of 18 holes. Here's Howard Street. There are 9 holes south of Howard, bordering up to Touhy Avenue, and 9 holes north of Howard Avenue. Now, in 1937, George S. May, an engineer, a business consultant, and an efficiency expert, long before that term came into vogue, he took over the club and vowed to run it as a business, not subject to whims of members' bank balances. But Mr. May was not a cheapskate, not by any means. His motto was, you have to spend money to make money, and boy did he. He began in 1938 with $500,000 poured into a sprawling prairie-style concrete and glass clubhouse. And on the side of it was a 100-foot-tall water tank on a tee. And it was shaped like a golf ball. So if you were in the area looking for the course and couldn't find it, just look up and find the water tower. Well, Mr. May improved the course, and by the 1940s, he thought it was ready to host championship tournaments. He began in 1941 with the All-American Open, and in 1943, he added the World Championship of Golf, as you can see here on this placard, which you can find at the course today. Both of his tournaments involved women as well as men. And between the years of 1941 to 1957, all total 17 years, 34 events were held there, and more than $2 million was paid out in prize money. It was the live golf of its day. Now here's Mr. May in this photograph on the left, standing on a pile of money, $25,000 to be exact. He was the first to offer a first prize of $25,000 in 1953 for his World Championship of Golf. Now you might think today, $25,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money. But in 1953, that was over $200,000. And just to give you perspective, professional golfers in the 1950s were earning usually less than $10,000 a year. For example, one professional won 3 tournaments, the US Open, the British Open, and the Masters, and his total was only $9,500. So $25,000 was really a great draw for some of the best players in the world. Many players thought if they could just win several of George S. May's contests or tournaments, they could retire, which is what exactly Byron Nelson did. He won 5 times, retired, bought a ranch in Texas, and happily left the game of golf. Well, what other firsts were introduced at Tam O'Shanter besides a $25,000 first prize? Well, he was the first to build grandstands on the golf course. That's right, to make it a spectator sport. He was the first to build leaderboards so that you could follow your players along. They actually were armed with shortwave radios where they could post the scores. He also was the first to put up pavilions and sell hot dogs and beer. Seemed a little bit plebeian at the time, but it was a big hit with the spectators and the gallery, and the first to print a tournament program with player information. And how did you follow along your player? Well, players were asked to wear a number. That didn't go over so well with the players, so it was agreed that their caddies wear their number. And Mr. May was the first to charge spectators only $1 to attend the tournaments. He was mortified when he found out that the U.S. Open was charging $3.30. And it was the first tournaments to include all Americans, women such as Patty Berg and Beg Zaharias, and people of color such as Joe Louis. And the most important designation, or first in golf at Tam O'Shanter, it was the location and the venue for the first nationally televised golf tournament in 1953, the World Championship of Golf. Now, with this broadcast, it was live. You can see here that the television cameramen were perched atop automobiles. And here we are at the 18th green. Now, when Mr. May was approached for the broadcast rights, it wasn't for the practice rounds or the other rounds. It was for 1 hour of the final round. And what a contest it was in that exciting 1 hour. Well, Mr. Lou Worsham and Chandler Harper were going at it for the final prize of $25,000. And here I have a short video that recaptures that moment.
1953, Chandler Harper and Lou Worsham battle it out for $25,000 first prize money in the World Championship of Golf at Niles, Illinois. With so much at stake, both pros make every shot count. Harper draws the plaudits of the gallery with a drive that skids to a halt just 2 feet from the cup. But here's the shot that makes the history. Lou Worsham hits an approach that travels 140 yards and drops in, the miracle shot that wins the money.
Now, the gentleman running onto the green was Mr. May, announcing that Lou Worsham won that $25,000. But he also announced that in 1954, the following year, his grand prize was raised or doubled to $50,000. Well, what became of the Tam O'Shanter Golf Course? In the 1970s, the property was sold. The land south of Howard was turned into an industrial park, and the land north was purchased by the Niles Park District. And it is now only a 9-hole course. Only 2 holes remain from the original 18-hole course. No, hole number 1, which is a par 4, and what is now hole number 6, which was formerly number 16 on the original course. And in 2017, the Tam O'Shanter Golf Museum was opened, thanks to contributions by the May family and an assistance from Niles resident Mary Ann Miller. Well, did you think that Chicagoland had anything to do with the first Masters tournament? Well, indeed, it had very much to do with it. The very first Masters was held in March of 1934. And it was won by Horton Smith. He was a golf professional at Oak Park Country Club right here in Chicagoland. That particular tournament was not won by Bobby Jones as been predicted, but won by a member of Chicagoland Golf. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the didactic portion of my program. As I indicated in my opening, I am a history edutainment speaker, and I do present not only presentations on golf, but on a number of other topics, such as a more comprehensive hour-long program on the history of golf in Chicagoland, amazing castles around the world, Chicago's historic motor road district, 1905 to 1936, where I cover architecture and automobiles on South Michigan Avenue. Driving forces, 100 plus years of women influencing, buying, designing, and driving automobiles. The golden age of manufacturing in Chicagoland, 1872 to 1972. The history of the electric vehicle. What's old is new. And 2 Christmas programs, American Christmas and New Year's traditions, and a history of popular Christmas carols and songs. So if you're interested, please contact me by email. Once again, thank you everyone for listening and watching the historic Chicagoland golf highlights.